Let's talk more about the competition that is growing. Another Democratic candidate who made it official this weekend, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. She's also working a key early voting state today, and CNN's MJ Lee is joining us in Iowa City, Iowa. MJ, Senator Warren no longer the newest candidate on the block. As of just a couple of hours ago, you just spoke to her. Tell us about it.
That's right. We actually started the day, Anna, in Cedar Rapids. And as soon as Elizabeth Warren took the stage, she went after Donald Trump by name. She said by the time that 2020 rolls around, President Trump may not be president anymore. And then she said he may not even be a free person. Obviously, sort of glibly talking about the fact that he may be in prison by the time that Election Day comes around. Now, this was notable because Elizabeth Warren, since she announced her exploratory campaign back on New Year's Eve, she has been pretty reticent to ever mention President Trump by name. And she explained that even though she did that this morning, we shouldn't expect to see that kind of language from her every single day, that she, in fact, wants to be emphatic about not engaging President Trump on every single tweet, on every single attack. And we asked her about that a little bit here in Iowa City after she wrapped up her speech. Take a listen.
But the question now is, are we going to follow him on every single racist insult and taunt that he tweets? Or are we going to take back this conversation? Some people had asked me, are you going to respond to this? Are you going to respond to that? And the answer is no. I'm going to talk about the big pieces that were broken. You know, things were broken long before Donald Trump got here.
And Anna, with the 2020 field growing by the day, this is going to be a question that every single one of the Democratic candidates will have to answer. How do they stay on message? How do they talk about their candidacies, their platforms, and then not allow President Trump to sort of set the agenda every day? But at the same time, how do they draw that contrast between their candidacies and President Trump, who they're trying to take on in the general election? And I can tell you, over the last couple of weeks, just talking to voters in the early states, voters, too, are divided on what they want to see from the Democrats. There are a lot of voters who say they want to see the fighter in some of their Democratic candidates, that they want them to take on President Trump directly. And then there are plenty of other people we have talked to who say they do not want them to engage President Trump at all. So that divide already very clear, even though it's just February, Anna.
All right. Just February of 2019, mind you. MJ Lee.
That's right.
Thank you. With us now, CNN political commentators Anna Navarro and Simone Sanders. Simone was National Press Secretary last time around for Bernie Sanders' 2016 presidential campaign. And Anna has worked with a number of top Republicans, including Jeb Bush and John McCain. So let's discuss Warren first, Simone, because you heard the comments she made questioning whether President Trump will be a free man in 2020. Is this the fight fire with fire approach?
I think it's a little bit of that, but I also think we heard Senator Warren pontificating on what is absolutely true. I think there is a growing sentiment that you don't know what could happen. I don't know if we'll continue to see that refrain from her on the campaign trail. She could have been testing it out today, and depending on what all the coverage looks like, we might not hear it again.
The Trump campaign has put out a statement specifically about Warren's announcement. I don't think we've seen that on any other candidate's announcement days. And then the president also tweeting this weekend about her. He also is taking a swipe at Amy Klobuchar and her snowy campaign kickoff today. But for the most part, he's really not going after other candidates. Anna, why?
You know, and I saw the tweet about Amy Klobuchar and calling her a snow woman for standing there braving the snowfall, and it made me chuckle, frankly, and roll my eyes. I mean, this is a guy who skipped a visit to a U.S. cemetery in France of U.S. veterans because he, poor baby, was afraid to get his little hair wet. And so I think taking on Amy Klobuchar, attacking her for standing in the middle of a snowfall in her home state, might not be the might not be the hill he wants to die on, might not be the smartest line of attack for Trump. Look, I think he's been very careful of how he treats Kamala Harris. Amy Klobuchar, if calling her a snow woman is the best he's got, that's not much of a nickname from where he comes from. I think he goes after Elizabeth Warren more than others because there is something about Elizabeth Warren that triggers the Republicans, that triggers conservatives, that triggers the right wing. I would equate it a little bit so that my Democratic friends can understand the way that Ted Cruz triggers visceral emotion. Elizabeth Warren triggers visceral emotion.
Well, Warren's comments that we played is an example of how she's fighting back, and she's fought back along the way. Even in 2016, I remember when she got in the mix. But she's taking a different approach than some of these other candidates, at least what we're seeing so far. Here's Cory Booker.
Everybody's tough. I know there's a lot of great fighters there. But I've learned that when I come to being tough, I never want people to think that in order to be tough, you have to be mean. In order to be strong, you have to be cruel. I want to campaign like I want to govern. I'm going to get criticized, so let me get ahead of it. They're going to say, oh, gosh, more candidates talking about love and hope. Oh, my God, how are you going to beat Donald Trump with that?
Simone, is this strategy of love and hope a winning message for Dems this time around?
I have to laugh a little bit. You know, I know Cory Booker personally, and what he's talking about, he really believes this, you know, and I think that this is a strategy that could, in fact, work for Cory. Look, he's saying that I can talk about love and hope, but that does not mean that I don't have a plan, that I don't have a policy platform. Now, the question just becomes, are there enough voters in particularly the key states that that's a message that they want to latch onto, that they're susceptible to? Like, is that something that gets folks fired up in Iowa, gets folks fired up in South Carolina? And those are two places that Senator Booker has been a number of times already, and he's drawing great crowds. People are coming out to hear what he has to say. Now, it's still early. It's very early, okay? The first Democratic primary debates are not until June. So I would just caution folks to wait and see. It's too early, in my opinion, to say whether or not love and hope is gonna win, you know, this Democratic nomination, but it could.
Anna, let's talk about lessons learned. Because as these Democratic candidates formulate their strategy, what should they take away, perhaps, from how Trump tore apart the 2016 GOP field?
Look, for me, lessons learned, I think Elizabeth Warren has taught one very early, which is do not allow yourself to be provoked, to be baited by Donald Trump. She allowed herself to be baited by Donald Trump on the Native American issue, and she's come out looking much worse on the other side for taking his bait and for going down the path that he led her down. So, you've got to somehow be able to answer him without him being the one that's pulling the puppet strings. He is very, very good at that. He's very good at branding. Little Marco, lying Ted, low energy Jeb, crooked Hillary. So, you've got to also be able to brand him. But I think if you look at 2018 and some of the Democrats that most captured the imagination of the Democratic base and of the country, they were optimistic. It was people like Beto O'Rourke, like Stacey Abrams, like Andrew Gillum. You have to be able to fight back, but at the same time, you have to be able to offer something positive that you stand for. Got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time if taking on Trump.
Some of those people you just mentioned did not win their elections, but one woman who did, and she won big, was Amy Klobuchar. She announced her bid today from her home state of Minnesota. We know Trump won some of the Midwest and the Rust Belt states that Democrats thought were safe, Simone, while Hillary barely won Minnesota. Klobuchar won re-election there by more than 20 points. Given her strength and her appeal with Minnesotans, does that alone make her a serious contender?
Look, I think Amy Klobuchar is a serious contender. But again, we have to wait and see how folks stack up on the debate stage, and if we have the same, and if the voters have the same energy for Senator Gillibrand, Amy Klobuchar, Cory Booker, and Kamala Harris, for that matter, that they have now in July, August, September, and as we get into the fall of 2019. But look, I think I am so excited that there are a number of women who are not just running for president, but running for president as top contenders. I hope this is the new normal. Now, the question, I don't want folks to overplay, if you will, that just because somebody is from the Midwest, I'm from Nebraska, just because they're from the Midwest, they have the potential to connect with Midwest voters better. Because someone like Senator Gillibrand, for example, she is from New York, but she's from upstate New York. Troy and Albany look a lot like places in Iowa than I think people realize. And so it's really about your message. It's about your ability to connect with the voters. And at again, what is your vision? Anna's absolutely right. Democratic voters don't want to hear that Donald Trump just sucks and that your opponent is bad, because we heard that in 2016, and as you'll note, a number of folks just frankly did not come out to vote on the Democratic side of the aisle. So we need bold visions, policies, platforms, and I think that's what we're seeing from these Democratic candidates thus far, and I'm very excited about the field.
Simone Sanders
and
Anna
I
Navarro.
think another lesson learned,
Quickly.
Anna and Simone, is there's some things in life, like elections, like presidential elections, that are binary choices. But for people like Jill Stein or Gary Johnson, Hillary Clinton might very well have been elected president. And so, Democrats need to keep, and everybody that wants Trump out needs to keep their eye on the ball. It is a binary choice.
Thank you, ladies. Good to have both of you with us this weekend.
Thank you.